What is the subject for today? Well, considering that US citizens are being detained and people who are residents are being detained and people who have no business being detained, I thought I would talk about what is habeas corpus. A lot of people have heard the term before, but they're just not clear what it is, when it's used, how it's used, and so forth. So, habeas corpus, the bottom line is that when somebody is unlawfully detained, okay, when sometimes there's disputes whether they're unlawfully detained, of course, but when they're unlawfully detained, what a habeas corpus does is we file that in federal court, and if the habeas corpus is granted, then the person who's in detention is let free. The order granting a habeas corpus is to release the person in detention. Okay, that's what a habeas corpus is. So, in today's day and age, habeas corpus is going to be used a lot more often than in the past. That's the reality. And so, what would be a good idea is if you know someone who is being taken into detention, you have to ask a few things in order to determine if there's a viable habeas corpus action. First, are they a US citizen and are they being taken by ICE? If the answer to both those questions is yes, then certainly there's a habeas corpus action, for sure, because ICE has no jurisdiction to detain a US citizen. So you always want to try to work it out before filing a habeas corpus. So what I do is I will send ICE a letter. I will notify them in no uncertain terms and have proof that the person they're detaining is a US citizen. I will cite the areas of law that show they don't have any authority to do so. And I will give them usually 2 days to release the detainee. And if they don't, then I'll file a habeas corpus action. Now, a couple things with that. You never, as an attorney, you never ever threaten to file something and then don't follow through on it. It's like little kids, right? If you don't follow through on it, then immigration will go, he's just bluffing. He's not going to really file it. So I write the letter and the good faith attempt to try to resolve it before I file it. And then I end up attaching that as an exhibit showing the judge. Because sometimes if you don't do that, the judge will go, why didn't you contact them directly and so forth? But But when you try to work it out, and we're talking 2 days, that's what I give, and they ignore it, you have a better argument. I mean, not only do you have the argument that they're detaining a U.S. citizen of which they have no authority, they're not going to be able to come back and go, oh, we didn't know he was a U.S. citizen. We thought that he was here illegally. And they're not going to be able to lie about that because you're going to attach a letter that you sent them with proof that they received it and the name of the person who received it. And it's going to say why this person's a US citizen. It's going to have a copy, for example, of their US passport, their certificate of naturalization. It's going to have the law and it's going to have a demand to release them. So they're not going to be able to likely say, oops, we didn't know. And of course, what happens after that is, if you win the habeas corpus, which in this case you probably will, you can come for attorney's fees because they shouldn't be doing this. And there has to be consequences, not just releasing a person that doesn't have authority to detain them in the first place. Okay. So while habeas corpus is a uh, strange term for most people, that's what it means. And same if they're a lawful permanent resident and they have no business detaining them. I'm not saying you can't detain a lawful permanent resident, if they commit a crime or they become inadmissible or they become removable, whatever it is. But if it's just detaining them because they are a lawful permanent resident, that by itself is not lawful. And a habeas corpus action can follow from that. Okay. So that's basically my summation on this. So, of course, if you have questions, let me know. You can also subscribe to my Substack podcast, the whole deal. All right. Everybody have a good day.